laying down, doesn't matter. So I want to ask, has anyone seen the website, or I mean the YouTube? Some of us have here. Mm-hmm. But who hasn't? You haven't, no?
I'm so sorry that I have not.
All right, so does anyone here have an idea of non-duality? Yes?
Yeah.
You've heard of it? Yeah? Yeah. That's bad, actually. Be an idea of it.
Ramana Maharshi style.
Ramana Maharshi style. Yeah. Well, let me just give you a take on how I see it. Yeah. You want to start it, honey? We'll put it on. Oh, it's on. All right. So non-duality, the words mean non means not, yeah, and two. So it means not two. So from the get-go, non-duality is premised on a negation. So it's not saying oneness, it's just saying not two. So that's its direction in a way. Its direction is you find out about the affirmation by negating. Yeah. So by seeing what you're not, you get a sense of what you are. Instead of looking for what you are from what you're not, you see what you're not, looking for what you are from what you are. Yeah, you get it? It's like a little switcheroo. Yeah, very simple, but it's sort of like the stubbornness of the system will keep clicking it the other way, but then there's sometimes a nice little lock for a little while, or pause, yeah? And then when it goes back and it goes this, you see that's not you. Yeah, so that feeling of the one who's connected and disconnected gets seen through. The one that's close or far, that one that did something that exiled them from something and has to work and an effort to get somewhere, all that gets negated. Yeah, and what happens is, in seeing what you're not, you find out what you are. And where most people are trying to find out what they are from what they're not. That's why I don't believe it works. And so, if spirituality was like a cigarette pack, this would be like the warning on the side. Yeah, it's just I'm just trying to point out something that in some people, or people who really like Ramana Maharshi, well, in his teachings, most people, he never wrote them. He didn't do it. He spoke, I think he wrote one book in his own dialect, but he didn't do it. But a lot of people wrote about his teachings, but they were succinct and they were, gathered. And he would use a very, very important term for this concept, which is the problem or the greatest mystery. And one of the statements he made is the greatest mystery is reality wanting to attain reality. Yeah. The greatest mystery is reality wanting to attain reality. Yeah. So what he's implying is Bill, Mary, Sue, Julie, Erica, Paul, really AKA reality, is looking for itself. Now, from Paul's point of view, that makes no sense because Paul thinks he is the self. Yeah. And so Paul needs reality to get relief from what he's going through. Yeah. But what non-duality is doing is negating the idea of Paul, and then what's left there is you are reality. So then you see the greatest mystery as what you've been doing. Yeah, one of the rude awakenings is the way it was. In a way, I had a moment. I didn't have a moment, but one time I saw a sentence that caught what had already been going on. And it comes from recovery, which I'm a member of for 30-something years. And it's a very simple sentence. He goes, and self in this view is the sense of being the doer, the thinker, the feeler, the haver, the loser. Yeah. The sense of self is the consciousness gets claimed, and now you feel like you're the one who's conscious. So you feel like you're the seer when actually they're seeing. Yeah. We feel like we're the feeler, but there's just feelings. Yeah. We feel like we're the doer, but there's just doing. Yeah. So there's verbing, but then the mental state applies a noun to it, and the verbing gets claimed. Yeah, and it's used to imply a noun, and then the noun is presupposed before the verbing. So now you start feeling like you have a lot to do with a lot of shit you have nothing to do with, basically. Yeah. So this word self means a lot. So I saw it. It says being convinced was the sentence, and being convinced means a present tense state. Yeah. And convince means to believe with certainty. So through your own observations of this life, you've reached a point where you believe with certainty what? That self, this idea of ownership and doership and thinkership and all that, that self manifested in various ways is what has defeated us. So in this little example, we would be represented as us, and there would be some idea that seems to defeat all of us by its manifestations. Now, how does it have the ability to do that? This is the key. So being convinced that self manifested in various ways is what has defeated us. I finally saw self as other than us. Yeah? And as soon as I saw self as other than us, a possibility downloaded, which was I can be free from it. Yeah? And then it explained what was the prior condition. Since I've been 6 years old, I had been trying to be free as it. I was in the act of being identified as self, yeah? And in that act of being identified, it appeared to me that I forgot what I am. And I took myself to be what I'm not. So then everything started to go from there. So I was living from a false reference. And so when I entertained freedom as that, it was freedom as this, or with this, or for this, and through this, where the real freedom is from it, yeah? Mm-hmm. So the whole premise of our talks, and it hasn't changed in years, because Ramana would say another thing beautifully. He said, there's this presupposing, and the word pre is of time, yeah? And supposing is like assuming, supposing, assumptions like we were talking about tonight. You don't know if they're true or not, but you're just assuming they are. So there's a pre-assuming that this non-existent thing is really what's existing, yeah? Mm-hmm. So we're taking ourselves to be the body. The mental state has mixed up the object and the subject. So consciousness would be the expression of subjectness, and the body would an object. So this is dualism, this is the root of duality. So we're in a cognitive dissonance of subject-object. We're mixing up objects with subject, yes? And we're thinking the object Paul is seeing when that's not what's happening, yeah? So I saw it wasn't me, and then immediately that thing, I could possibly be free from it, and then it told me in a split second, it looked like, it just scanned my whole life, and it told me that's all I've been trying to do since I've been 6. I've been trying to get out of me as me. That's why it wasn't working. Yeah? And the way to get out of me is to realize I'm not in me. It's a negation. It's a negation. Yeah? By seeing what I'm not, I find out what I am. And it told me all I've been doing, I was trying to find out what I am from what I'm not, with the hopes if I acquired more and more knowledge and more spiritual experiences and more realizations, that what I'm not would become something else. But all the while being its same little self, yeah? So I see it in these talks and meetings. It's gotten to such an extreme that this self wants to become a non-self, but as a self. So now it reads non-duality and thinks it knows it, yeah? But what's claiming to know it is the exact negation of non-duality. That's what blows my mind. So the exact thing that, again, all the journeys are going to be issued from and started from is erroneous. Yeah. So what would happen if? So let's say you're into meditation. It's fine. Yeah. But then if you went to meditation, there would be a warning on the meditation cigarette box, and the warning would be, the mental state is so fast, right? Before you are even aware of doing the meditation, it's going to be using it to imply the doer. So now you're going to feel like a meditator while meditation's going on. That's the bondage of self, yes? And it's very fast process, and I don't believe there's any process that can get before it. So you're not going to meditate yourself out of the meditator. Now, if you could see that warning and then do this shit, I'm telling you, it would be, first of all, if you missed a day of meditation, it wouldn't be the end of fucking days, yeah? You would just fucking, I missed something, so what? Because your inherent condition would be an inherent condition. It's not being manufactured, and it can't be unmanufactured. Yeah, it's just available at all times, right where you are, with really no requirement necessary, but we make up a lot. The self makes up a lot. Yeah, so the self wants to be relevant, and one of the last relevances it has us believing it can block us off from the sunlight of the Spirit while we are the sunlight of the Spirit. Yeah, so, all right, so that hit me. I finally saw, hey, I can be free from it. That's what I needed. I needed to see what I was as something other. Because if I see it as something other, there's still something seeing it. And I would say that's more of what I am than this. Yeah? So I saw what I wasn't, and then the other possibilities rolled in, which is I can be free from it, far out, yeah? And then it told me why I hadn't seemingly been available to freedom, because I've been doing exactly what he was wanting. I was taking myself to be the non-existent thing, and then wanting to get salvation for the non-existent thing. And then Ramana gives this warning, which is beautiful. It says, if this little formula is in place where there's a mistake, the subject is now cast as the object, yeah? And now the object is trying to understand subject. So it's using the subject to look for the subject. You have to see it, yes. See? So exactly. This is an appropriate response when you see it. It's hilarious in a way. So, so he says, all right, if that's the case, your spiritual practices themselves are reinforcing the non-existent thing. How can they destroy it? So here, we're all spiritual practitioners. We just put out some shoes, see if they fit. If they fit, there's going to be information downloaded. You'll see the futility of what you're doing. It doesn't mean you stop doing it, but you see the futility of doing yourself into being. Because being you don't arrive at being through doing and having. The being is before any doing and having. I would say doing and having is, in a more appropriate manner, is an expression of the being, I hope, yes? Instead of an acquiring of what we already are, maybe we're understanding that, and now our life becomes an expression of it, yes? Oh, it's so beautiful, man. It's the easier, softer way, for sure. So this whole idea it was so important with me that I haven't left it for years, because when I was going to satsangs, either I was missing it or it was underemphasized. Everyone was describing what we were, like consciousness and the presence, but what was hearing it was what I wasn't, and was just conceptualizing what I am, which it is already. So its high level of understanding was going to be a concept of what it always is. What an insane fucking downgrade, yeah? I mean, so then I noticed, Jesus, we want to know what we are, we want to study what we are, we definitely want to experience what we are, and you could apply that to anything you're not, but you can't apply it to what you are. Your only possibility is being it. So the wanting to know and study and experience it, if it's turned on what you are from what you're not, it's a disservice. You're going to be full of fucking knowledge, and it's going to avail you nothing. Yeah, because the searching for the knowledge and the acquiring of knowledge is actually being used to reinforce. Yeah, to reinforce that which you'd like to get out of. So all your efforts to get out is actually verifying the imaginary in. It's a rude awakening, but I'll tell you, it can be that extreme. You'll finally see the horse in front of the cart. I mean, the horse in front of the cart, because you've been having the cart in front of the horse. We've been using what we are to look for what we are. Yeah. We've been using what we are, which is seeing, to look for itself. There's no way you're going to win. That's the finality of it. That's the futility of it. This futility has no clauses or exemptions. It hits you like this is incapable of getting to where it already is. It's incapable of it. One little subtle move puts 1,000 miles between you and what you are, seemingly. It's appearing to what you are in the guise of what you're not, that this is real. Yeah? that I've lost it somehow I did enough crazy shit, I'm exiled from what I am. In the Course in Miracles, they would say it's the guilt of feeling like you separated from God, which is an impossibility. And the Course goes through hundreds of pages to get you to the point of realizing nothing ever fucking happened. Yeah, what you are has been blemished by anything you thought could blemish it. Yeah, the most horrendous acts hasn't left one mark on it. Yes, that's the beauty of it. The beauty of it, it has nothing to do with you, ever. Yeah, and so now you're put in the right position. You're an expression and an observation of the expressions. You're not a cause. This is an appearance. Yeah, so then what I saw, because I speak to a lot of people, and we term this whole thing called selfing, because I don't believe there's any nouns whatsoever. I think everything is verbing, yeah. And the mental process, in my view, in a very rough way, don't get biological on me or whatever, is thought system, memories, and perceptions, yeah. So if you just look at your own thought system, the thought systems assume that you're a doer quite a lot, yes? And that when they assume that you're a doer, you're pictured as a body. The body you see when you look in the mirror, yeah? The memories, when you think about you at any time, you're pictured as a body. You can't picture yourself as spirit 3 years ago. How you got, well, there I am, you know. There was no thing to sort of, you know, so the whole memory system is based on you as a body, yeah? The perception sees things. It's not seeing no thing. We're seeing no thing as things. So the perception's altered. So there's a reliance on these systems, and therefore it's a presupposing that you get habitually into, yeah? So there's the presupposing becomes a fact, and then all the narration in one's head is to reinforce that fact, yeah? So now you don't see it as what it is. It's really an advertising. It's trying to convince what you are to believe it. If seemingly you've swallowed that, it's all reinforcement. It's sort of like this time I was in, just to demonstrate it, I was going around the world and ended up in Istanbul. And, you know, if you've ever been there, there's this beautiful place called the Blue Mosque, and then there's a place called the Sophia, pretty close. So a lot of tourists go there. And then we were there, I met a couple people at the guest house, so we were walking around, and a very well-dressed guy, very nice haircut, walked up to us, spoke really good English, says, hey, I'd like to show you around. So I'm a little suspicious, but then he takes us around. He knows a lot about the stuff. And then he brings us to this brick wall, and there's a door. He knocks on the door, and a guy opens, looking quite like him. And that's the last time we see that guy. And this other guy ushers us into this showroom and says, oh, what's your name? I go, Paul. He says, Mr. Paul, do you want Turkish coffee, apple juice? I go, apple juice. So they bring you in, and they have you sitting down on the sides. And then this giant rug demonstration starts happening. They come out and they're flipping the rugs and the lights hitting it. They're beautiful rugs, incredible, going on. And they'll, any more apple? Oh yes, I'll have some more apple juice. They'll do it for 3 hours. You're sitting there, right this. But you see, I didn't have a house. Yeah. Yeah. I had no flaw, not F-L-O-O-R. I had no flaw. So I had no temptation to buy a fucking rug, yeah? So no matter how great, I was like, fucking bring it on. I'm not buying a rug. There's no possible way. Not with any thought or effort, I'm just casually not buying it. So then they tell me, well, we can pack it into your knapsack. Give me a break. I'm not going to go to Thailand with an oriental rug in my backpack, you know? So I had an immunity to the temptation now, but you see, if I had a flaw, if I had taken the flaw to be a fact, I may be quite interested in the rugs, yeah? This is what happens. We've swallowed the bait. All it's doing now is reinforcing the assumption, because the assumption is taken to be so. It's when you get a pause, when you get a free sample, and that assumption is now under question. Now you see the head for what it is. Because look at your thought system. Are your thoughts playing outside to others? The audience is inside. It's us. It's not inside. It's playing to us. Us as what we are. It's trying to convince us of something. If it believes it's already convinced us, it's just reinforcing it all day. Every day, the same story, just reinforces the identification as what you're not. Yeah? And then all the obsession is to reinforce the identification. Because there's a belief with all the obsessions that you're an obsessive person. That's the assumption it wants to insinuate or assume to be already so. It's not, nor will it ever be. So when the message hits you, it comes from timelessness, and then you can see what happens in time. And this idea of you is an activity. It's a mental activity. And the thing is, it presupposes, so when it says, right, that you were Paul, it has a feeling that you were Paul, and you're gonna be Paul. It's an unbelievable move, yeah? In other words, in spirituality, they call something the I am, which is the undeniable onness, yeah? So here we are in the I am, all of us. We're not in it, it's that. So, but how the mental state gets around that, it goes, I was Paul, yeah? All the thoughts and the memories, I was Paul, definitely. Everyone tells me I was Paul. I will be Paul, because who the fuck would worry for a stranger, yeah? For 20 years, yeah, I will be Paul, and therefore I am Paul. You see? It uses time to arrive at the moment. It doesn't leave the moment through time. It arrives at the moment and then puts a little floor over the I am, yes? And now there's a rug, and now you got to get matching fucking shades and curtains and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. On and on and on, and it just refuels it. And all you're wanting to get out is no fucking problem, because it's reinforcing the imaginary in. That's the dilemma. We are very, very powerful, and if it's misdirected, what's not so is going to really seem to be so, and what's so is going to seem to be forgotten. And seem is the key, yeah? It's going to appear to be true to you. Yeah. So this, what happened, it just hit me over and over again. And it's never changed from that point on. Because I saw people, and I believe if you don't see this clearly, you're going to be looking from it. Yeah? If you don't see it before the inception, the advertising is going to be taken to be a fact. And that's how it sets off the whole thing. Yeah? And it's not a fact. It just assumes it is. It insinuates it is. It's like here. Let's say there's consciousness, yeah? The ocean of consciousness. And there's a little mental boat trawling, throwing chum out, You're a loser. You're never going to be loved. You fucking took that money from your mom's purse, whatever. You've been convicted of tons of shit as a doer, yeah? And it's throwing us up. And so let's say consciousness rises up to the little chum. And once it bites that, it feels like a fish. And not only that, it feels like a historical fish, both ways. That's the arising of self, yeah? And you're before it. There's no before it. You are that which can see it, yes? Instead, but when that is taken to be a fact, then that which is seeing it, right, is looking from it. And this is what we run into. We're using the seeing to look for itself. Yeah? We're using the seeing to look for seeing. That's why these are the warnings. And so Huang Po, a great Zen master, put a beautiful, he's my favorite, really. He did a beautiful statement. He says, whatever can be perceived can't be perceiving. So we're all off the game board, really. Because I'm seeing you, you're off. You're seeing me, I'm off. Yeah. So, because that's the subject-object mix, right? There's subjectivity, and then the perceiving, and then it's mixed with the object. See? So the objects thinks it's doing the subjects. That's dualism. That is the root of duality. And that's what non-duality is negating. It's not saying anything else. It's just negating the two-ness. It's negating subject-objectness, yeah? And then if you see it in your own life, which you can right now, there's a cognitive dissonance, because sometimes you feel like you're the thinker, and sometimes you feel like that which is thought about. So there's a fluctuation of identity all day. Yeah? This is what non-duality is questioning. That's what non-duality is not two. That's all. It's not, and it doesn't say not two, then the eternal oneness. No, it doesn't say a damn thing, because you are the eternal oneness. You don't need to study you. You'll find out you. Yeah? You'll find out what you are by seeing what you're not. You can study what you're not. It's helpful. And hopefully the books put an understanding out about what you're not. Because if what you are, start studying what it's not, it reaches a conclusion. Hey, I may not be that. And that's a big freaking relief. And the relief is inherent because you've never been that. You see? Nothing is like this. Nothing is like this. Every solution demands maintenance. This doesn't. Because when it ever dawns on you, which is at all times, well, let's say it seems to have happened, it tells you it's always been this way. So there's no need for maintenance or vigilance. That's all bullshit. It's an inherent being that's not disturbed by all the shenanigans on the screen. So stop giving us so much relevance and power which we don't have. Yeah? You cannot block the light from the light. What you can do is it can be a seeming misdirection where the light is looking for the light. That seems to block it. Yeah? That can seem to block it. But there's no real blocking because you're the light looking for the light. Yeah? So this great guy, Huang Po, I don't know if he was a great guy, he's a great master to me. He said, this is so great. So here we are, let's say Paul, Julie, Erica, Jeff. And so Huang Po's here talking to all of us. And I didn't go to this earlier, but I'll do it now. So he's looking at Julie, Paul, Jeff, Erica, but he's not seeing Julie, Paul, he's seeing the Buddha, right? So he's attempting to talk through Erica to the Buddha, because in this point, Erica is the obscuring activity. Yeah? Your looking is the obscuring activity. So we're attempting that he's speaking through Erica to the Buddha. Yeah? And he's kind of saying, hey, Buddha, you can't use yourself to find yourself, which is quite obvious when the Buddha hears it. Yeah? Because it's not hearing the message as Jeff. It's hearing it as the Buddha. Yeah? So after a while, when I gave these talks, I knew very quickly, there's no point talking to you about the Buddha. There's a huge point to talk to the Buddha about you. Yeah? And so in this room, the Buddha is here because it's everywhere. And I don't have to focus or target it. I can throw it this way or that way. What I like to do is overwhelm the obscuring system. So I don't like when people take breaks and they breathe and go into fucking silence. Because they feel like they're the one in the silence. That's duality. I want to overwhelm the system so something can get freaking through the system. So you writing and trying to understand is the obscuring agent. Get through it to the Buddha so the Buddha goes, hey, I can't use myself to find myself. Fucking end of story. Yeah? And then Huang Po doesn't let you up. He says you can't use mind, big mind, to seek mind. Nor can you use light to seek light. So if you follow what's being implied, you're Buddha, mind, and light. Why would he say you can't use light to anything other than light? He knew exactly what he was talking to. He was talking to light about using light to find light. And he was just correcting something that doesn't even need a correction because it never happened. But that thing that's been entertaining, that it has already happened. See, this is the way the mental state does it. It never happens, but it says it already happened. It makes a presupposed fact out of a fucking advertising. Now, if you become like a clever consumer, you won't fucking buy it anymore. And what will happen to this little action figure? You'll travel lighter against your own fucking will and shit. Yeah? And you'll observe that, and like they said about Jesus, you'll know the tree by its fruits. You can't know the tree, but you'll know it by the fruits, yeah? So you'll start seeing, hey, of the last 15, 20 years, I've been traveling lighter, which to me was, everything didn't just get great. It was whatever destiny was in store for this, I've traveled lighter over it. And after 20-something years of that, what more do you freaking want? This is not a chariot of the gods. It's like a Toyota. Yeah? You have ways of life that have already corrected the miscorrections of the action figure and the mental state. You don't have to fucking adorn it with garlands. It's utilitarian. Mind is it. Yeah? This isn't going to a heaven. This isn't the chariot of the gods. This vehicle can't take you anywhere except 7-Eleven and fucking places here. Yeah? You don't get taken anywhere. It's never left. Yeah? So I honor it greatly. This was an insane action figure, so it got corrected through the way of life of recovery. Yeah? But I remember taking it to be me. The Urban Renewal Project was never fucking called off. Always working, As soon as I saw it wasn't me, fucking that budget got shifted. And now the interest and attention is available here and now because it's not directed all day. Yeah, to me, that's what presence is undirected interest and attention. It's not preoccupied with the past and the future because that's the only place you can come up with you as a self. Yeah, you're here, and you're here not because you finally found the method to be here. You've realized you can't be anywhere else. There's no way you've ever been out of any moment, ever. It's all made up. Look at the surveillance tapes. You were fucking there. I was spaced out. No, you were there. You're giving this thing way too much fucking power. Yeah, it's yours. You're the juice. You're the juice that supplies its energy. Yeah, because we think it's us. We think it's us, we remember it as us, but we're not the thinker and we're not the one who's having the memories, yeah? It's the mental system playing with itself. You're way, way before that, yeah? You're untouched. You're like, we always use the terminology out of Zen, Tibetan Buddhism about the sky. Sky is like the mind. Sky is incredibly open, allows tons of shit to happen, yet it's not affected by anything that appears in it, yeah? That's what we're like. Yeah, we're like the sky. So when does it, get full? Does the sky get full of clouds and no more clouds? SRO, standing room only? No. The clouds, tons of millions of clouds. No clouds move in. Have you seen the same cloud for fucking 3 years? No. Everything is movement. Everything is verbing. Everything is verbing. What the mental state does, wants to suppose from the verbing, there's a noun, and then presuppose the noun before the verbing. I see it perfectly. So I was in LA, do a lot of talks down there, and a guy who listened for a while would say, all right, this idea of selfing he sort of got. See, but this is what happens. People say, oh, I got selfing, and they call me and they go, I've been selfing all day. I said, no, that's not it. Or selfing's driving me crazy. No, that's not it. That's the product of it. Yeah. You're already seeing it after the production. That doesn't do any good, yeah? So he said, all right, let's call selfing Pauling, and let's call self Paul. And he says, Paul, how much is Paul Pauling on a bad day? Like 70%, 80%? And how much is Paul Pauling on a good day? 10%, 15%? And he went on and on. I said, no, you don't see it. The Pauling is used to imply the Paul. And it's a perfect description of Ramana said. Here's the Pauling, yeah, gets claimed, there's a production of a Paul, and then suddenly the Paul is presupposed before the Pauling, and then Paul talks as if it was doing the Pauling. That's not happening once every 30 years, it's all day. That's the movement. The movement is, the verbing is claimed and used to imply a noun that comes after the verbing. So there's the conscious contact of seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching is the basis of all our days, yes? The mental state arises after that contact, claims to be the seer, the hearer, the feeler, the taster, and toucher, and then makes it a dualistic thing. He says now there's a seer and seen, which is subject-object, yeah? Feeler, felt, subject-object, yeah? Taster, touch. Yeah, subject-object. This is what non-duality is negating. That's all. It's just saying, no, there's seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching, but there is no seer and seen, hearer and heard. That's a narrative. That's made up. That's an interpretation, and we didn't even have it when we were babies. Yeah, we grew into this thing. Yeah, And now, every time you want to grow out of it, you're trying to grow out of it as the thing. That's why there's no escape. If you're in the act of being identified, you won't know it. You either got to get a whack or hear about it or something. You're not going to know it. It can go on for fucking 30 years. And you'll be thinking you're getting closer to getting out. It's right with you. Everyone's hoping to experience their own absence, but being there to do it. Yeah, it's not going to work out that way. So I've seen it, that's all. That's all I can say. Things happened, and what mostly occurred was a reverse engineering of stuff. I just, like, blueprints were laid out, that's all, like downloaded. They were laid out, and I had a seed assignment to share. And so I reached this point of seeing this idea, and it hasn't moved me from it forever. Because to me, just as Ramana implied, like the greatest mystery, the problem, I hold it that same way. And I feel, I just want to warn us, all of us, because that mental state wants to imply it's you. And it's going to neuter everything that you would hope was going to bring great bounty to your life. It will neuter it, and it will use it to reflect you as a self. It's looking for reflective surfaces, and spirituality is a shiny, big surface. Mm-hmm. So the spiritual self is really dangerous, because spiritual seeking can go on forever. No one's going to jump in here and intervene and say, you've had enough fucking talks. Put that book down. Not mine, but someone else's. Shit like that. No, they're going to sign you up for the 30th retreat. Have you give them $4,000. They're not going. There's no committee that's going to look at your application. He's been to too many. No, they're trying to do that, but there's no fucking... there's no regulation of the spirituality. I mean, at least addicts or alcoholics are usually going to create so much havoc, it's going to attract authorities, but, we can live under the fucking, for 40 years. So, yeah, the people who most love me is I've saved tons of money in their spiritual budget. Now they can spend it doing other things. I'm still waiting for the 25% tithing. I haven't seen any of that, but so it's just, this is the same point. I just go over and over again. So I try to share you what it's to see the system reinforces itself, and there's a couple of locks. Yeah, so one of them is the sense of you're hearing the message, and then the message becomes a call to arms when non-duality's message is disarming. That's its whole point. So non-duality is not a path, and you don't do non-duality. It's a fact, really. And hopefully it will question the other assumed fact. So you'll start questioning the assumed fact, yeah? And because it's sort of like the assumed fact is like a little dog that can act like a big dog, but until you bring a big dog in, so when the real fact is noticed, then you see through the assumed fact. That's the beauty of it. Yeah. So now you have a new starting point, not from you, but from that. Yeah. So now you got a big foot in timelessness, and timelessness can see any process, because every process is of time. So you can see selfing, and because you're rooted in the futility of this ever arriving at where it already is, you have a lot of immunity to the fucking advertising you used to just gobble up. Yes, you have an immunity to it, not efforting like, fighting everything I see. No, it's just a loose, relaxed awareness. Yeah, and then you put it to the test. And the spiritual roof hasn't fallen on me. I haven't fucking God hasn't kicked me in the ass yet. No, nothing. And if you took my blood, I have no signs of spirituality whatsoever. What we call spirituality, I have no fucking interest in it. None. So either that's incredibly successful, I don't know what. I've lost interest in that. It just seems, I think a lot of all this shit isn't being seen. And that's just my humble invitation. Maybe you can see it. To me, it's like we're at a spiritual shoe store. I just put out some shoes. If they fit, let them wear them for a while and see what downloads, yeah? And maybe if you miss the next retreat, it won't be such a big deal. And then maybe you'll get a sense of being meditated instead of getting always meditating. You know, you get a sense of sensing the presence instead of trying to acquire it or capture it or focus it. Man, it'll just change a lot. And it's like a relaxation that's better than 50-time massages, you know? It just drops this coiledness that's in us, yeah? And you also get to see time, which is very good, because time is the biggest ingredient in the magic trick. You can see it by the word presupposing. The supposing, if seen right now, would be seen through, but because it's presupposing the fact, yeah? You're seeing the supposing now as the fact. Yeah, you see? Yeah, it's a trick. So and because we're trained as this to think it's like past, present, and future, right? Like right now is the present, and then there's the past and the future, and it's a linear, inexorable thing, yes? Going this way. The mental state doesn't play that. It takes what comes after and implies to be before. So the verbs are all that's happening. The mental state claims the verbs and supplants the supremacy of seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching with the interpretation and the narrative of see or hear or feel or taste or touch it. Yeah? See it. It's there to be seen. And it doesn't matter. It's not going to stop, but there'll be a loss of interest in it, really. It's not going to stop. It's mechanical. You never did it. You're not selfing. There's no way. It's mechanical. It's going to go on. But what's going to change is the interest and attention. The interest and attention will be withdrawn and dispersed in a more like judicial manner, so to speak. It will enrich your moment now instead of enslave you to yesterday and tomorrow. It's the same energy. It can turn into a handcuff or it can turn into like a fucking opening, you know? Exact same. And we have, see, this is another thing you got to watch. If you want to lose interest in interest, that's interest, yeah? So you can't go that way either. So like we have a statement in AA, you got to quit playing God. And he has a simple reason. It doesn't work, you know? All right? So, and then a lot of people get very confused. But I'm saying that which you're not is playing God. God doesn't play God, it is God. But the mental state can play God, yeah? So with our juice, yeah, which is deriving from what you would call God, yeah? So let's say that which is playing God hears this statement, you got to quit playing God. Now it takes it like an order, really. So now it sets out to try to quit playing God, but isn't that playing God? Can playing God ever quit playing God? That would be playing God. Ad infinitum, yes? Can that, once you're in, can it ever get out? No. Once you believe you're that which is playing God, and that you're that which has to stop playing God, that goes on ad infinitum, because every time you try to stop playing God, that's playing God. You can't pull it off. What happens? It's not that you stop playing God, you see you're not that which is playing God, and then interest and attention gets withdrawn, and then that big God becomes very paper thin, because it's your light and production quality it's using to put out its little show. Yes, beautifully. So it gets withdrawn, and then see what happens to it. To me, the interest and attention leads to a point that you never get gypped. I'm always here. It doesn't matter what here it is, I'm always here. Sleeping, dreaming, just here. I can't be anywhere else. I didn't get here with any magic talks. I just realized I can't be anywhere else. I really wanted to get out of here. Since I've been 6 years old, I've been trying to shoot up myself out of here, hallucinate out of here, fucking almost get killed out of here, but can't escape from an imaginary place. You can't. You can't escape from an imaginary place. And how long would it take to escape from an imaginary place? No time whatsoever. And would it be established? Of course, it was an imaginary place. That's the inherent quality of the solution, yes? The solution does not lend a fact to the assumption. That's the solution. It cuts its legs out, yeah? Without the assuming that it's a fact, it has no juice, yeah? So if you vanquish an imaginary foe, did you really vanquish the imaginary foe? And are you afraid that it's going to resurrect? It never was to begin with. Yeah? Oh, it's going to come every 12 years it comes back. No, it doesn't. Maybe you do in 12 years. Disguised as that, but it doesn't. Yes? This is the beauty of the message. The message isn't adding anything. It's negating, and it's not actually negating anything. It's an imaginary negation. Yeah? But not from the imaginary point, trying to negate the imaginary point, but the reality negating the imaginary. Yes? It's not like, I'm not that. It's like, hey, I'm not that, basically. Yeah? See, this is the dilemma. You and I hear this message, like in the Course, someone's from the Course here. They have a big thing about dreaming, you know? So the dreaming. So here we are in this meeting, and we talk about the dreaming, but what's hearing it is the dreamt. So now the dreamt starts trying to think about the dreaming. No, that doesn't go anywhere. You're talking to the dreaming about the dreamt, not to the dreamt about dreaming. That's why we have to keep pointing this out, because at meetings, that's what happens. The dreaming seemingly forgets, then the dreamt starts hearing about itself and starts making up fucking ideas. I should have 50 Cadillacs, perfect knee joints, get everything I want at all times. If I'm the dreaming, if you see it from the dreaming, there's acceptance. That's what happens. Things I never would have accepted. This has been accepted, yeah, because I'm not this. Yeah, it's so beautiful. Really. You doesn't care how you arrive there, but when you arrive there, it'll tell you why all that stuff was seemingly going on. You're in complete cahoots with it. Like the Course says, you and I are the dreaming of the dreaming. It doesn't say we're in a dream of someone else's or we're a little pawn. It says you are the activity of dreaming. We are right now. We are the dreaming of the dream. We forget we're dreaming. I don't like the word dream because it implies a thing. So I like using dreaming. So you and I are the dreaming of the dreaming. We forget that we're dreaming. That interested me. So I said, wait a minute, how does the dreaming forget it's dreaming? Well, being identified as the dreamt. Yeah? That's how it does it. So suddenly it's now identified as the dreamt, and what happens? That which is giving everything all the meaning it has now gives shit meaning and gives it the ability to affect it. So now I have an ass to get kicked. I have an ass to get bit. Yeah? You see? So I'm the dreaming of the dreaming. In other words, I'm giving everything all the meaning it has, but I forget that, and now I've given everything that I'm dreaming the power to affect me. It's everyone's day. If you looked at everyone's day as a scheme, a schematic, that's the day. Dreaming, seemingly forgetting that it's dreaming, seeing everything from the dreamt. Now the dreaming seems as real can be, and it's an uncaused effect. Yes, as they say. You have real effects, but the cause isn't real. Yes? Real effects, but they're uncaused effects. There's no cause. It's dreaming. It's not actually happening, but the effects seem real. That's what happens. Yeah? So you read a little of this, you hear it, something will trigger. Yeah? It will trigger. I have so much faith in this. I've sat here many, many fucking times. And I know my job is just to serve a spiritual subpoena, and it was already served before I even came here. I got the easiest job at all. And I know you're going to make shit out of it, and so if you want, keep listening to the videos or when I come back so that we can have a little remembrance of actually what we were trying to get across. Because you got to be an ear doctor here. You got to check out how people are translating it, because it'll get translated. You're going to make it what it is. Yeah? But I don't. If I'm here, I'm not going to let you get away with it. I don't want it to be fucking that mutated. Yeah? I don't want. I'm not a believer in retreats. I'm not a believer in intensives. I think a day in Bryn Mawr, well, maybe not in Bryn Mawr. Let's say Philadelphia is intense enough. Here it's pretty nice. Maybe you need to go on an intensive here. But where I'm from, it's intense enough. Yeah? Why would I pay? I have them all day. And, you know, I'd match a 10-day retreat on cocaine than any fucking 10-day retreat in spirituality. You'll see so much more of what you're not on a 10-day run on cocaine. You're going to see the motherfucker feeding on you, unbelievably, having carte blanche coming in and out of you and da-da-da-da. Because every time you meet it, you call it me. Every time it's breaking in, see, when it breaks in, as soon as you see it, it assumes it's already been there. It's not a fact. It's not true. Yeah? It's not a denial. It's a negation of its reality, of its truthness. A denial would be, it is a fact, and I'm just trying to deny it, and this is a spiritual bypass they're talking about. Bullshit with that. Spiritual bypass. Yeah, I want the easier, softer way for sure. I do. I do. And you know, I used to go on retreats 13 hours a day. You got to believe you're going somewhere. You know, someone just to feel a little less blood pressure, maybe 20 minutes. They're not going to sit for 13 hours. You think you're going somewhere. You're not. You're not transcending this place as this. This is the dreamt. This is forgotten in the dreaming. This is like a token. It's nothing. Yeah? You have like 80 years of life. You know what we are? Timeless. Jeez. So, yeah. All right, well, I'll give you one more, okay? Well, we should count up how much money you gave me. I'll try to get it across this way. This is a very simple way, the hand and the glove. I don't know, maybe you've heard it. So there's a hand, and the world it's in is sense. Is the only one sense is feeling, right? There's no other senses. So the hand is all there is. Yeah? So there's this world hand, and the hand has a glove on it. Yeah? And the hand has seemingly forgotten it's the hand and believes it's the glove. Yes? And is reading the scriptures of this place, and the scriptures are describing heaven would be like feeling 800,000 rose petals all at once. And so that's what you want. The hand, a.k.a. the glove, would like to arrive at that experience. But the glove is rough, yeah? And so no matter whatever the glove feels, it gets translated through the roughness. So everything feels rough. Yeah? It doesn't matter 500 things, 800,000 things. Whatever it touches, it overrides the thing, and yes? So that it's rough. So now the hand is taking itself to be the glove. So now the glove hears that maybe it's a hand. So now the glove gets really sophisticated, and the glove tries to become an unglove, which is more fucking gloving, yeah? So now it wants to get out of the glove, but as the glove. See, this is one of the first pitfalls. No, it's not the message. The message is, yeah, is to the hand about the glove. So when the hand hears it's not the glove, what happens? It goes, hey, I can pull out. And now the hand comes out of the glove. Now it may seem to go back in, but now it's not forgetting that it's the hand, yes? And so throughout all the interpretations of the thickness, it's having another thing going on, yeah? But the habit is to mistake the hand back as the glove, and then the assumption becomes the fact again, yes? And it will keep attempting to do that, yeah? And it's subtle and quick. And non-duality has been made into a whole fucking mishmash of stuff, in my view. They're trying to mix it with therapy. They're trying to do all this stuff. Non-duality therapy is nothing ever happened, really. Actually, that's another one. I am going to go into that business, I think. I'd only have to work one day. I'd be a non-dual psychiatrist. I'd make 60 appointments without the clients knowing, because they all thought they were going to get an hour each. They'd come in and they'd start bitching about what's not happening, and I would say, Mr. Smith, that's not happening. See you next week. What? Because why would I want to put a solution on what's not happening? That would be happening now. Yeah? So I'd see 60 people and they'd never have to work again. Really. The solution is it's not happening. What more do you need to do? If you do anything more, it makes it seem like it's happening. We're what's happening. And we're giving what's happening over to what's not happening by preoccupation with past and future. So really, next week cannot bleed into tonight. Yeah. But if we're thinking about it, we can produce an effect from it now. Yeah? I mean, that's incredible power we're demonstrating all day. Like Jesus supposedly raised a guy named Lazarus from the dead. It's one of his main miracles. But at least Lazarus was alive once. We're making shit out of nothing all day. Really. We're making shit out of nothing all day. I've been to AA meetings when it was July 28th, and the lady's whole day was ruined by August 15th. She was afraid something that she was so specifically knew was going to happen August 15th, which she had no fucking clue, and it was ruining July 28th. This isn't a random occurrence. It's happening all day. It's a fucking robbery. It's slavery, really. Where what's happening is enslaved to what's not happening. And it can override the experience of seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching. The thinking has been given so much power, it overrides conscious contact. You can seemingly be unconscious as conscious contact. It's mind-boggling. Yeah? It's not true, but it can seem to be true. Yeah? So I love AA because it's a fact before all the other facts, and it will negate the facts you're assuming to be so. Yeah? If you rest there, it'll clear a lot of shit up without much effort or thought. Yeah? And then you'll see blue is blue and red is red. The horse will be in front of the cart. You'll sense it, yeah? To me, when I heard this message, it was like unspoken yes. Something just vibrated. And I said, man, this is knowing before all knowing, you know? It just hit me. And then it's been reverberating ever since. And it doesn't need, I don't have to maintain it, put nice little... No, it's rugged, all-terrain vehicle. It travels well. And then over a period of time, in observation, what can be an effect, which is this, I've seen that it's the last answer in this world of solutions and stuff, which is an incredible answer. It took away all the need for any other answer in this topic. Beautiful. And it's been the last answer for fucking years. Not like a couple of weeks until the next person comes in. I mean, done. Yeah? What an incredible solution. It takes away all needs of any solutions in this topic. Yes? Because you are what you're looking for. Stop looking for it. Yeah. How can you stop looking for it? See that you're not that which is looking for it. That's the way to go. You gotta get before the fact instead of you don't duel the fact. You're going to lose. Even when you think you won, you've lost because you've given it credence when it doesn't deserve any. Yeah, you've given it relevance when it doesn't have any. Yeah, so see what happens. All the books we've infused shit into the T-shirts. Oh yeah, for sure. We infuse nothing in the T-shirts. Very powerful. And the books, unbelievable. No, all this is just to have support. Because repetition about an invitation can be valuable. Yeah, because you never know which one's going to get through, like the defense mechanism. Like I used to use it as the spiritual sperm, yeah? So the spiritual sperm have a very difficult time getting through to the egg, so there's millions of them. That's what we're trying to do, just overwhelm the systems so only one sperm has to hit the mother egg. When it hits the mother egg conceives an idea, hey, I may not be that. And then the next idea that comes from that first idea is, I can be free from it. There you go. And then you arrive at where you've never left, like that yoga thing. Gone, 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 to the other shore, upon arriving at the other shore on having never left.
How do you remember that?
I shouldn't forget it. You got the whole night.
Because I've been riffing it for months. Because at least if you entertain on having never left, at least one or two gons are going to drop out. It's not going to, it'll be gone maybe, I've seen the other shore already. Where's there to go? But I tell you, what a difference your day would be if it started from on having never left instead of as a vehicle of arrival. I just love that. I've had a big impact. It still does. That's why we called it On Having Never Left. On Having Never Left. So you can cut out. If you took the gone, right, to the other shore, which means, awakening, whatever, yeah? Take gone to the other shore upon having arrived. Take all that out and just put On Having Never Left. There you go.
Well, Anna's painting it in the new studio, so just do Having Never Left.
On Having Never Left.
Paul Hedderman.
On Having Never Left. So, look at
only English part.
look at the fairy tales. They always start with once upon a time.
Yeah.
Right.
This would negate it all on Having Never Left. It needs time to get started. It does. That which you are needs no time. It doesn't start or stop. Yeah. And it's impeccable. It's untouchable. Yes, you can't do fucking anything to blur it. Yeah? You don't really. I've done some heinous fucking acts here in this life. And when I go back to my hometown, there's not, don't see it. It's just gone. Yeah. I thought I did terrible things to people. I try to make amends. They don't even remember. They do. What? What are you talking about? And it was so profound when I fucked them over. They don't even remember. What are you talking about? It never happened. And what? Yeah. So you're not really that important. Yes.
Well, with the course idea, there's a lot of stress on guidance, and I feel like I can hear guidance most times, but my friend Alan doesn't, and he's studying the course, and you very much, and I wanted to know if you had any feedback.
Well, it's going to fail him, and that's how it will be successful for him. Yeah. What's a beautiful thing, like it says in the course, what can a failed system show you? To me, it's failed. Yeah, that's beautiful. So then you get left with your own devices, and maybe you'll see they're not your own devices. So the idea of, some people put out that the course would just be for a year, and then you throw it away. Yeah, it's supposed to incite or something. It's not the book. Yes, the book is something triggers mind. Yeah, we are what we're looking for. Maybe you get to that for a little bit through a book, but it ain't the book. Yes. So, I don't know. I have to meet them and stuff. I'm not a big studier of anything. Not. I get what I need or whatever, and then it's like the pellets coming out of the thing. They got cut off. And then they move on. And then maybe hear this and maybe hear that. And then the head goes off and entertains it. Yeah? And brings life to it. So like that statements I used tonight, they're still alive. They're like avalanches every time I hear it. The Buddha, you can't use the Buddha to seek the Buddha is one of the most unbelievable statements in all quote-unquote spirituality to me. It's just so unbelievable. It just explains so fucking much. If you have the ears to hear and the eyes to see it. And every time, I find times to say it because it just ignites the same avalanche inside all the time. And that's why lesson 2 was like that for me. You and I give everything all the meaning it has. Every time I did that, every time since, there's always a pause where I don't know what that fucking thing is. I call it a refrigerator. So, and then the refrigerator rises. So I see the whole activity of the meaning given to something. Yes, every time. Just like there'd be a pause, what the fuck? And then, a refrigerator or a chair or this. Yeah, that's what they're for. Yeah, you respect the book. You don't have to honor the book. The book did its job. It's to initiate freedom from books and freedom from this and freedom from that. And then freedom, not something that you acquire, but express. Yeah? Yeah, the horse is out front of the cart. You're not looking for what you are. You're expressing it. Yeah?
Question.
Yeah.
About the hand and the glove.
Yeah.
So your hand and a glove is on you, and maybe that glove came from your parents or whatever because they want to protect you. They want to make sure your life is comfortable. So you go through life and you're feeling everything through a glove, and then you meet a hand without a glove, and it says, that's not what that feels like. And you're like, I don't understand. I feel like this. And that other gloveless hand says, no, this is really what it feels like. So I'm wondering, can a gloved hand remove itself from a glove without the assistance of another hand, or a gloveless hand?
It can hit you, yeah. But a lot of times you're going to hear it from somewhere else or something like that, or it can just whack you, yeah.
Or it go like that.
But see, the thing is,
like
the hand is never going to talk. The hand is never going to talk to the glove. It's going to talk to the hand about the glove. See, the glove is going to be claiming to be the one hearing the message, but the hand is very clear. It's not talking to the glove, even though the glove isn't clear. The hand that's speaking is very clear. It's not wasting a second talking to the glove. That's bye-bye. Those days are over. I do that in AA, where you can be helpful. I don't do it here because I don't think helpfulness is helpful in non-duality. I just don't think so. I think you need to be left with your devices to see they're not yours. Yeah, I do. I don't think, why would I polish a device that I'm trying to use to see what I am? As what I am. I'd rather come in there and say, fuck the device, and then just let's go, see, oh, I can't, and then see, everything's fine, yeah? The thing is, we keep buying glasses to correct a pair of glasses, but we think they're our eyes. We never actually feel up there. We're just assuming it's me. It's not. It's a view called self-centeredness. There's something behind that view that doesn't need correction, yeah?
Paul, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
On the creation of meaning, right?
The making of meaning, if you look at the course.
Okay, yeah. We give everything its meaning. So the meaning is ultimately the meaning we're ultimately wanting to give ourselves of the meaning. So, right? So, like, everything that, if we look at the table, you said, I look at the refrigerator, you give the refrigerator all the meaning it has, but really it's because in relationship to the you that you take yourself to be, so you're ultimately the one who's trying to create meaning for yourself.
Well, in a way, yeah, because the mental state is using things like anything as a reflective surface.
Right.
So like when I always used the thing about Uncle Fred when I was young. Uncle Fred was a guy, I don't even know if he was an uncle. He would be at the relatives' parties, and he'd give me $1, on the side when my mother wasn't looking. So I liked him, for that. And then he passed away. So there was a funeral, and my mother and I went, and I was 9 years old, and my mother wanted me to say goodbye to Uncle Fred. I wasn't that keen on that, but she walked me up to the casket, and I looked in, and I had a hit. That ain't Uncle Fred. There was an inert body, yeah? The subjectiveness wasn't verbing seemingly through it. So it was clear that the object wasn't the subject. And I said, that ain't Uncle Fred. And then in hindsight, I could see why I was mistaking the subject as the object, calling Uncle Fred the body, is because I was in that assumption, yeah? I was mistaking what was, the seeing as Paul looking, yeah? So it was just, of course, if that's the case, I'm going to project that everywhere else. Yes, yeah, for sure. But it was this answer or whatever, its quality when it reveals itself is of timelessness, yeah? It doesn't take time for shit to happen. It's a very more of a sudden strike, yeah? And then it may play out how it expresses, but it's not of time. It's not in a time capsule, yeah? It just whacks you. And so you start realizing the solution from those effects, yeah? And so just like if you look at consciousness right now, seeing, hearing, let's just say the 5 gates, seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching, is there any effort in it, yeah? And maybe you have bad eyes, so then it would be hard. The facility of it is something wrong, but what seeing isn't efforting to see, is it? I'm not going to seeing lessons, like this or this. And you hear a lot of shit you don't want to hear. So basically the idea of you as the hearer comes after the hearing. Because if you were the hearer and had some power, you wouldn't have heard that shit, really. Yeah, you would have cut it off just before that thing, but you don't. You come after consciousness. You might as well get this in place. I mean, if you're starting a race and you see that something's 10 yards ahead of you, it's sort of uneven. Why would you think you're that which comes after? How are you going to explain the before? So the seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching, obviously. With the hearing, I hear people telling this all the time. They feel something and then they go, I didn't want to feel that. But the feeling already got noticed, yeah, because the idea of you as the feeler comes after the feeling. The verbing happens and then the noun occurs and then the noun assumes that it had something to do with the verbing, but it doesn't. I didn't want to feel that, but it has no power. How many examples do you need? This isn't like, this is a phenomenon once in a lifetime. This is all happening all day. We're just looking at the mechanism of selfing. That's it. It's on all the time. This isn't like, I caught it like an exotic animal. I got the shot of the fucking snow cougar. No, this is all day. Just see what's happening. Not from it, but yeah.
So when you start seeing the theater of the absurd happening,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
There's this duality of you've got to interact with everybody else who's living in a different sense of reality, in the reality, right? So I find it very difficult to live in this projected state of observing the theater of the absurd and trying to not get sucked back in because there's this other reality of life around happening, and that it's hard to stay in this one state. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I am, but really you're living in this. You're not living in that.
No,
that's the fact. You're living here.
Right, but you can start seeing that you don't want to get sucked into something.
That's not you. That's not you that's saying that. That's the assumed
observer.
fact, you see? The observer is not you.
Right.
The observer is in the dreaming. The observer isn't gotten out of, like an amphibian, out of the water of dreaming and is now observing. That's in the dreaming. Ramana has it very well put. There's a guy or woman sitting in a big theater. He sees that it's a movie, but there's an assumption that it's real. And Ramana says the circle includes that. So whatever that is with you is included in the dreaming. See, there's that little subtle assumption it's a fact. It's not a fact. It's in the dreaming. So you catch it, and catch it, and catch it, and it arises wherever you seem to be, yeah? But you're always before it. It can't get behind the camera. It's in front of the camera. You're behind the camera, what you are. And you know what? The living is in front of the camera. And I'll tell you something. I don't like these things I remember there's, people who have big followings, they have a lot of people to keep busy. So they'd have these intensives every week for years. And I used to read some of the titles, and this one was, How to Integrate Your Awakening into Daily Life. Give me a fucking break. There is no integration into it. One's contextual, one's content. Yes? The context doesn't integrate into the content. It's what's holding all the content. So the living is here. Yeah? And this will have its sway. This is the most influential non-thing. No time at all passes and it can change your whole fucking life. And it doesn't change where it needs maintenance. It's falling apart, it's eroding. No. The maintenance of being is in being itself. Yeah? Yeah, that's the beauty. I'm a slacker at heart, man. That's the beauty of it for me. This is where there's no demand. It's so beautiful. Yes. Yeah, and even the demand and the effort would make it worse. That's so great. So I see, there's a statement in I think the new neuroscience, the observation distorts the observed. Yeah, that's what happens. So, you can't, all right, I'm not going to stop the observed. Yes, you are. That's, the functionality is it's distorting the observed. That's what we're not before that. We're after it. The idea that you could do something with that's totally hilarious, really. Yeah, you're just an effect of it. You have ways to live. You have skillful means. You do them to keep this somewhat fucking not running off the road and killing 30 people every day. But then, you reach a point of enough, and then let the mind get lifted off of this preoccupation, to me. And it will be much better for this. That's the beauty of it. When this lifts off, it's the greatest day for this. Because this is not, it can't handle being the center of the universe. It can't handle having so many thoughts surrounding it. It just can't. It's just flip. You look at people now. If you look at a person for 5 minutes, they're flipped out completely, most of them. I mean, I swear to God, they're sitting there calmly underneath the table, they're like, they're just fucking off. Man, it's just way too much. You're not the center of the universe. This is a utilitarian fucking instrument, in a way, if you want to even call it that. And it's perfect for what it does. It can express and it observes to a certain level, but it has its limits. It's not going to go to the moon and maybe go 15 feet, like compassion, empathy, whatever. That's the best it can do. Yeah. Now, it can't do no harm, so maybe do less harm. Let's shoot for that. But just catch it. You catch it. There is no observer and there's no witness. No, there's none of that. There just is. The idea of witness is another way of masquerading self as a sophisticated, more subtle self. There's no witness. There's witnessing, maybe you want to call it that, but there's no witness. None of this thing there's no noun to be found here. There's no noun. I'm humbly telling you, I'm not enforcing it on you. I'm just sharing. This is what I'm seeing. I do not see. It was an unbelievable time. My mental landscape had these built-up noun skyscrapers, and then this wind just blew them all fucking down, and they weren't even there to begin with. It's just verbing. Verbing. There's not a seer-hearer. There's a seeing-hearing. Yeah. And of course, you're in Rome, so there's seer-hearer. But have Rome you're on a visa to Rome. You're not of Rome. Yeah? You're visiting Rome, and you do as the Romans do, but you don't fucking swear allegiance to Rome all day. Yeah? You're like Jesus has a perfect negation. I don't know if he said this, but it's a perfect negation. Perfect. He says, you're in this world, so let's look at what it would be like to be in this world. Well, things, separation, obviously, independent, time, so he says you're in it, all right, everyone can feel that, and he says, and yet you're not of it. So obviously you're not of time, you're not of thing, you're not of separation. Beautiful way to get to it, because everyone has the identification of being in, and he doesn't say, fuck in, he says you're not of. That's all. It's not saying you're not in, but you're not of. That's so beautiful. Yeah. This is the whole point, because the message goes against the mental logic. That's the beauty of it. They seem cryptic until you see it, until you get the deciphering code, and then they are the most sublime scriptures are less than 7 words, generally. Really. Just a few words. What's looking is what you're looking for, from St. Francis, The seeker is the sought. Supposedly Buddha said, events happen, deeds are done, yet there's no individual doer thereof. Yeah, these are beautiful, beautiful, beautiful statements. Yes?
Paul, when one realizes or understands that they're not who they are, in that process, do they specifically understand who they're not?
Well, see, there's no one that's going to understand what they are. That's the who you're not, So that's the negation. Well, in my sense, and mine's a small sense, I'm a fan of negation, yes. I feel if the activity of the obscuring is the idea of being identified as what you're not, then you would need to negate the false identification, yes? You wouldn't have to do anything about finding yourself. You just have to question the assumed person that you are. So sort of like here, let's say Stanley, and I'm Paul, and Stanley is manifesting through Paul, yeah, and defeating Paul by its manifestations in life. And every time the manifestation is noticed by Paul, right, he calls it Paul's. So Paul would be in the act of being identified as Stanley, yeah? So there would be no need to correct Paul, in a way. Paul didn't have to get better or get closer to anything. It would be to allow Paul to see that it's not Stanley. So therefore, it would recognize the manifestation of Stanley in life, and it would have a different relationship with those manifestations than if they're yours. If they're yours, they have carte blanche to have a huge effect here. If they're Stanley's, there's a possibility, fuck that. Yeah? That's it. So I feel humbly, that's why I believe negation is the best way to present this, because I believe there's an identification of something you're not, so that needs to be negated. Yeah? Yeah? From what you are, not from what you're not. It's not like what I'm not's going to negate what I'm not. That doesn't go anywhere for me. I believe right where we are, what we are is here. And so I know you can get through what you're not. I know it. I've seen it. It happened with me. So it gets to the message, and that's the spiritual subpoena. It's been served. And then you'll see how it plays out. Yeah? But hopefully, if you feel a lot better for the next few years without doing much, yeah.
So just to be clear, if you realize you're not who you are, and if you just answer yes or no, just so I'm clear on this, do you ever realize who you're not?
No, you'll be who you're not. Oh, no, you realize who you're not?
Right, like if you're not, if
Yeah.
you're not yourself,
You realize who you're not,
else.
but then you don't realize who you are because you're being it. Yeah.
Okay, so you never really realize who you are. You just realize
No.
that you're not who you are.
Yes. You can realize what you're not, but you can't realize what you are because you're being it. Yeah.
Okay.
You can have realizations in that being, but the realization isn't the being.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But can you say that you're then left with who you are? If you realize everything that you're not, then you're left.
Well, you never were left, but you've always been there, and there's never been anything really.
Yeah, so then is it...
So you can go through 800 negations to arrive at left, but basically that's the starting point. This is dreaming on having never left, so you don't have the experience of being the only thing that's left,
Right.
because that's the fact.
So is it you never really figure out
What?
who you are, you just know it's not who you think.
Exactly. You don't figure out who you are. You figure out who you're not. And it's not you that figures it out. Because that'd be very confusing.
Yes.
No. It hits you, and then, I use the horse in front of the cart because that's the feeling of it for me. So I believe most of us are living like in a bizarro world movement. So a lot of people are trying to get out of something they're not in, which is this idea of being the doer, the thinker, the feeler, right? They're not a doer, thinker, feeler, but they're trying to get out of that. So we're trying to get out of what we're not in, and we're trying to get into what we're not out of, which is the moment. So there's a belief that we can be out of the moment, which I don't believe at all, and that belief produces a seeking to get into the moment. But what does it really reinforce is the fallacy that you could be out of a moment. I don't believe we have that quality, yeah? So I believe it's a bizarro movement, which many of them are, which is we're trying to get out of something we're not in, which is the doer, the thinker. We were never the doer to get out of the doer. All there is doing. The add-on was the doing is used to imply the doer, yeah? You don't have to get out of that. You see it, and you realize you were never in it. That's the way, right? So we're trying to get out of something we're not in, which is the doer, the thinker, the seer, the feeler, the taste, the toucher, and we're trying to get into what we're not out of, which is the moment, yeah? Basically. And so, I always make a joke, but there was a huge book industry about writing books about how to get into the moment, and then probably no one ever finishes the whole thing. And they order the next one, how to really get into the moment. You know what I mean? And this and that. But all of that, and it's very noble and shit, but without knowing it, it's being used to reinforce the fact, which isn't, that you're out of the moment. That's the dilemma. This is what I humbly, I could be wrong, I humbly feel that Ramana is implying, and Huang Po's implying, and St. Francis was implying, and Jesus was implying by these negations. They were attempting to trigger, you are what you're looking for. So let's question then the looking for it. I mean, if you are what you're looking for, it makes no sense to be looking for it, yeah, unless you believe you're not what you're looking for. Yeah? And that's the question we want to look at, that's all, you know. What is it that is adamant about not being what I'm looking for? Is it a fact? I didn't find it that way, because what happened, I found out by just opening up to it, there was a before I had no idea of, that what came after doesn't inhabit. The idea of Paul appears after that before. And I totally have seen it can never be before that. Nothing is before that before. Nothing is seeing the seeing. Nothing. Nothing is seeing the seeing. There's nothing that's aware of the awareness. There's just awareness, yes? So what you're not begins and ends in time. What you are is timeless. You have the ability inherently to see from here. What we're doing is trying to see this by looking from here. Yeah. And that to me is the great, it's just tearing apart the equation and showing the falsehood of the mathematics. And then you're left with, what the fuck? And then all of what you call interest attention's up for grabs. You're open to be led by other ideas because you've realized the futility of this over and over and over freaking again. Yeah? I did anyway. And the failed system shows you it's failed. If you had the Course in Miracles, I can go off on a piece I really like. I forgot about it. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow night. It's one of the greatest descriptions of what we're not on page 468 in the old Inner Light Foundation.
Okay.
Read it. It's a few paragraphs. I think it's about the third paragraph, and it goes for about 5 paragraphs. It's a perfect description of what we're not, where he says, you know, the brain interprets to the body of which it is a part. So what's interpreting this whole event is of the body and is interpreting it to the body. That's the closed system that we're getting all our assumptions and information from. The brain interprets it to the body, of which it is a part. Yeah. So what it says here, it says, completely firm in faith in what you're not and denying what you are. I would say there's a denying what you are through being firm in faith in what you're not. Yeah. He says, we now rely on what you're not to tell us about everything. It's perfect. It goes on and on. It's beautiful. And now we look at life through those eyes. And he says, the eye that you are is the eye that does not see this world. Awareness, let's say, yeah? So we're relying on the eyes that see this world to interpret what's happening to us, and it makes no fucking sense to us. If you were a kid now, and you saw us as an adult, and we were worrying about next week, and the kid was here, you'd go, what the fuck? Let's play. And you're like, no, I can't. I got something big happening next week. The kid would be like, what? Yes, see? The whole course is always talking about that. We don't understand the communication because the narration doesn't communicate. It narrates. Mm-hmm. It critiques. It forecasts. There's no communication in there. None. Yeah? Communication is hopefully what's happening now. That's communication. Yeah? This is not communication. Yeah? So, yeah, if you had that, I don't have it. I don't carry it around. But I almost can remember the whole thing. But it goes on, and it's just basically because I don't see any value. Let's say we're sitting here, and someone starts talking about, let's talk about consciousness, and all we are is consciousness. You're hearing it as what you're not. I swear to God, there's a claiming of the hearing of the message of what we are by what we're not, and it seems to be really fast because it seems to be unbeknownst to a lot of us. This is the point of the whole reason why I come to Philadelphia, is to point it out. Seriously, and to get a great meal from Julie and Sierra can Julie. But I get a lot of benefits, but really, that's the point. Let's just get this clear. Why do you want to keep hearing about what you are from what you're not? Let's talk about what you're not to what you are. Let's try it a new way.
So
Yeah?
when you're being what you are, you're like
Now.
the horse that is timeless, because the horse is timeless, and that's actually what's happening all the time. So that
Well, yeah,
Kinda
because
like
it's
saying-
not of time, so it's happening all the time. Yeah, that's why Ramana says it's always realized.
see, we're talking about we're trying to get out of something to get into something, but when you're out of something and you're not looking for it, you are this what you're looking for. So it's like the horse is moving on, because you're you're not. There's no time. We think there's time, but the time is moving on. But it's
Yeah, well, the
Kinda
thing
like
is,
that.
see, when you're thinking you're going somewhere, at best you're going in reverse. So the time is being used to undo time, basically. That's the best
Something
use of
like
time, is to undo the influence of
it's
time.
like we talk about the flow state or something, which is kind of a buzzword these days, being in the
Flow state.
Yeah, because if you're not,
Sounds
Not
like
being-
urine problem. I may be in a flow state now. Adult diapers are soon. Yeah. I feel it.
Well, that's a good way to think about it. But what I was subscribed was
Yeah.
was like the horse is
Yeah.
is not the cart, or it's just time is. There's no way to put a stop on it, because that way you're not being whatever it is we were talking about earlier. When you're in the timeless zone, you're kind of always
Well, the fact is, you're
present.
always in the timeless zone,
Right,
an aspect.
but it's-
But what's appearing
We're looking
needs
for it.
time to appear.
Hmm.
Time is essential for the dreaming, because you're dreaming, it's an impossible dream, so the only way it can appear to be real is through time. Yes? Yeah. And if you're of time, you're going to be fooled by time. But you're not of time. And so you can see the effects of time from timelessness. And my imagery of it is almost like a dry current we're always being pushed by. It's not wet, so we don't feel the wetness, but there's a dry, and you watch everyone driving. The biggest influence in their driving is time. Time is a huge, huge proponent of this place. Huge, and very few people it's difficult to put enough time on it to speak about it, really. But it's usually, in my take, it's hugely influential. And Ramana uses the word pre very importantly, and that's of time, yes? Pre means before. So there's an assumption now that implies beforeness. That's a trick in time. That's the magic trick. And it doesn't matter if it keeps going on. You're not that. That's the whole point. You don't get totally free from it as that. You just travel lighter through it. Yeah? I mean, I have the same narration. It's a lot less. But what used to be held as CNN news flashes is like Comedy Central now. It's fucking hilarious. It's smallness, and it's just unbelievable. And it's never going to be convinced. Like we were talking about the rich people, but they have a belief that overrides the monies by scarcity. It doesn't matter how much they got, they're not going to convince it's enough. Because mind overrides fucking matter all the time. Yeah? And it's done according to your belief, as Jesus says. Jesus was trying to point out the whole thing. It's done according to your belief, as you think, so it is, seemingly. Yeah, there you go. There's a lot of power here, right in this room, and it's getting fucking spent in. I mean, you're getting all the bills, and you're what the fuck? It's getting spent wildly, really, and it's so. The presence, when it's dispersed into what's not happening, you don't even feel like you're present anymore. You got to jump off a bridge or shoot some coke to then feel like you're alive. That's how weird the magic trick can seem. Yeah. But when the interest and attention is freed from those preoccupations, you'll be here. You'll be awake to being awake. The fact is, we're all awake. Here you can seem to be awake to that fact, or you can seem to be asleep to that fact. It's not changing the fucking fact. Your awakeness or sleepness doesn't change the fact that awakeness. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's it, tonight.
Thank
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. You can ask some questions.